I want to welcome everyone to the Skanska, Autodesk, NVIDIA, and SmartVid.io webinar about AI, artificial intelligence, for construction safety and progress tracking. My name is Josh Canner. Happy to be the moderator today. We have a packed webinar. As you can see from this slide here, we have three other speakers: Oliver Smith from Skanska, we have David Desmini from Autodesk, Renee Yao from NVIDIA. It's a full agenda today. We're going to be talking about real projects with real results in the areas of both progress tracking as well as safety, use of artificial intelligence, and more specifically machine learning for speech as well as image recognition to drive value on real jobs. We'll start with Oliver Smith talking about that, and then David Desmini from Autodesk is going to talk about the role of Autodesk BIM 360 in helping to aggregate all of the photos coming from the job site in the BIM 360 field product and how that integrates with the SmartVid.io platform to do the analytics. And then Renee is going to talk about how machine learning works with her perspective from NVIDIA, which is the leading chip maker for artificial intelligence and machine learning products. She's going to take us through some background on AI and ML and how all the hardware works. Let me introduce myself here as we get things started. I'm the founder and CEO of SmartVid.io. We're based up in Boston, Mass. I have about 13 years and counting in the architecture, engineering, and construction technology industry. Over 20 years in enterprise software as a whole. I was previously co-founder of Vela Systems, which was one of the first providers of mobile and cloud software to the AEC industry. You may now know us as BIM 360 Field, the Autodesk product. So was doing that from 2005 and have worn a whole bunch of different hats over the course of my career, particularly in marketing. So I've done a lot of webinars. What I enjoy doing most is working with our customers on both marketing and product. So I've done a lot of webinars. So what that means is that I try and make them a little bit more interesting than typical webinars. I think this is my 20th webinar. So I'll be, for each speaker, including a fun fact. So you get to know everybody a little bit better. My fun fact is one of the jobs where I walked the job. It was Yankee Stadium, and it was right after Big Papi David Ortiz's jersey was chipped out of the concrete during Yankee Stadium construction. So as a Boston Red Sox and Patriots fan, it was fun to see that. So what we'll try and do in this webinar is make it interesting, make it very relevant. As I mentioned already, Oliver will be talking about real examples, and hopefully make it slightly entertaining, as you'll learn something about all of us as speakers and about the topic at hand. So let's recap what it is we're talking about today. What we're going to do is go into an overview of Skanska, who I'm sure most folks on the call know well as us at SmartVid.io. Talk about the problems we're solving, safety and progress tracking. We're going to be very practical, very applied. So how was machine learning, or artificial intelligence as the whole area is known, but machine learning is the specific area, how was that with field software applied to help streamline and add value to both safety and progress tracking for projects in Skanska? We'll talk about the real projects. There's an example, actually a photo on the right of one of the projects, which Oliver and I will be talking about. And after Oliver and I talk about those projects and the results, then we're going to bring in David and Renee, David from Autodesk and Renee from NVIDIA, to round out the webinar and then finish up with next steps. Now, if you've participated in webinars before, which I'm sure most of you have, but you'll probably know that you are muted, so you there's no opportunity to ask questions, which is somewhat negative, but there's also no opportunity for anyone's dog to bark in the background or truck that's backing up to make noise, which is positive for everybody else on the whole. We've all been on those conference calls. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have questions, though, ask them in chat. So you'll see there's a little chat box on the right. You can ask questions, and we'll be working in the background here as I'm talking with the various webinar participants. We'll be working in the background to answer your questions. And if we don't get to your question during this webinar with a response, we will follow up with an email afterwards. So please ask questions, and again, we'll get back to you in chat during the webinar, and if we can't, we'll send you an email afterwards. So we got a packed agenda today. All right, let's get started. It's now my pleasure to introduce Oliver Smith, BDC Director at Skanska USA. I've known Oliver for many years now, more than I think I want to share. Actually knowing Oliver all the way back from when he was up in New York City. Now he's in Atlanta. Many years in the industry and across these various roles. Even when I've known him, he's been in everything from field operations to BIM and coordination to now dipping his toe in the whole IT world, actually. He's a part of Skanska's innovation group in addition to his BDC duties. So he gets to do fun stuff. He gets to focus on new technologies. The areas he's focused on, machine learning, not surprisingly given we're talking today, but also drones, which he'll talk about a little bit. It's actually where our relationship got started here with SmartVid.io and Oliver, now squarely in machine learning. A fun fact is that he likes expensive cheeseburgers. So Oliver, I'll welcome you on here. Maybe you can explain to us what an expensive cheeseburger means.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Josh, and good day, everybody. So just to kind of give a quick background, too, with regards to Josh, you know, we've had a relationship for quite some time, as you had mentioned before, and it's always interesting to see some of the new innovative technologies that he comes up with, and this is just another example, which you'll see here today, where the relationship and the collaboration efforts were on point. So the expensive cheeseburger nomenclature or term comes from the aviation industry, which surprisingly, I received my pilot certification through Skanska and through our drone initiative. So roughly a few years ago when Skanska made the investment into drone technology, the current guidelines stipulated that a drone operator actually had to be a licensed pilot. And that was not what I was thinking by any means. So actually having to go through the FAA, get my flight certification, became a certified fixed wing pilot. Here I am flying drones now for Skanska, and now taking it upon myself to get my instrument rating. The expensive cheeseburger comes into play when pilots who aren't rich like myself and need to go rent planes, and we'll go rent planes and we'll fly to, Dalton, Georgia, for example, and land and go get a hamburger on the airport restaurant. You know, hamburger being $4 or $5, but because of gas and plane rental, that quickly escalates well over $100. So that's where the term expensive cheeseburger or $100 hamburger come into play.
Got it. So you started out interested in drones, and you wound up a licensed pilot, and now you have an excuse to go fly and spend $100 to get a cheeseburger.
You got it. So, yeah, awesome. Definitely fun times. I recommend people who are interested in drones, even though you no longer have to get a pilot's license, and those who are interested in aviation, definitely go after it.
Great.
So, enough about me, but let me get into a little bit of who Skanska is and who I represent within the company. So Skanska is one of the top 5 global contractors in the world. We are predominantly based out of the European and North American markets. And specifically here in the United States, we have 4 business units. We have our U.S. building, which handles all vertical construction. We have our civil business unit that handles roads and tunnels. And then we have our infrastructure development group, and then also our commercial, which focuses on commercial development, purchasing, building, and selling properties. So of the 4 business units, we roughly have about 5,000 or so employees in the United States. Our portfolio here in the U.S. alone is give or take $6 to $7 billion with an overall value or revenue of about $22 billion globally. So pretty large firm, but also very small roots in that sense as well. Last but not least, we're one of the top green contractors in the world as well. So we're always looking at ways to advance our green efforts through different platforms such as technology. And you'll see a little bit of that here today with the integration between technology and machine learning and our operations and safety. So safety at Skanska, one of our top mantras in the company. We've created an injury-free environment, or IFE program, that is part of our safety program. And just like the middle picture says, they expect you to come home safely, so do we. One of the things that we're doing at Skanska to enhance our safety is combining our civil and our building efforts in our standardization, but also looking at, as I mentioned before, our safety platform and integrating that into our technology platform to see where and how we can advance safety on our job sites. So one of the ways we're looking at advancing safety is through machine learning. Josh had mentioned a little bit about that early in the introduction, but some of the hardware platforms that we're reviewing and researching and have started to implement are rovers, drone technology, smart safety vests, and that kind of parlays into a little bit of what we call real-time location systems, where we're able to track biometrics, but also just safety as well. And then, of course, virtual reality is another alternative as well. So with that, I'd like to kind of lead into a little bit about machine learning and where we saw the value there. It's something that we saw as an easy implementation practice with our safety program. We wanted to see where those two kind of met and could provide that benefit. And so with our drone efforts and Josh, we wanted to extend that into machine learning and see where we could apply that with the safety program.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Thanks, Oliver. So I'll talk a little bit about SmartVid.io and our background here and how we built out this platform for safety management and progress tracking from the field. And we'll get into some real results from the projects that Oliver has been a part of managing the implementation of SmartVid. So we'll talk a little bit about the SmartVid technology now, and then we'll get into the results from those projects. So we are a software company based up here in now very, very chilly Cambridge, Massachusetts. We're a little over 2 years old. The founding team here, myself included, worked at Taurus, which was an enterprise software company with customers like Motorola and GlaxoSmithKline, and then also Vela Systems most recently, where Vela Systems we started in 2005 and wound up building mobility and the cloud, a platform for mobility in the cloud to help streamline quality management, safety, commissioning, and more, starting with punch lists, but being able to bring that to the construction industry. As we've talked about, that's now Autodesk BIM 360 Field. So that's a little bit of background about the company and where we've come from. We've been working in the industry for many years. So the connection between Vela and SmartVid.io actually goes very deep, where the missions are very similar. At Vela, we were bringing new technology to the industry. We were bringing mobility in the form of tablet PCs and then iPads in the cloud to help bring documents to the field and manage punch listing and quality and safety. Here at SmartVid.io, we're bringing a similar kind of new technology. We're bringing machine learning to the industry with a very specific goal. Just like at Vela, we had very specific goals about helping to improve the quality process, the documents to the field process, as we called it. Here at SmartVid.io, we're focused on safety, quality, and productivity. There's a lot of talk about machine learning today. Everything from automated cars, autonomous vehicles driving themselves, to just the way photos, you can search photos on your phone today. At SmartVid.io, we want to apply those technologies to the AEC industry in those specific ways: safety, quality, and productivity. So what's often talked about is, when you talk about machine learning, is where the heck is the information coming from? And I'm sure most folks on this webinar realize it, but a lot of people more broadly don't know that there's a ton of photos and videos captured every day on every project. It's typical to see 50 gigabytes of visual data generated on a typical project, and most of it ends up unused or siloed across different systems and devices. Actually, Oliver, we were talking about this before, right? It's one of the things that is a challenge in our industry still today, is that everybody's got photos on their phones and all different kinds of places.
It's crazy how much data is actually captured on our job sites, let alone photos, video, and audio recordings. It's just mind-boggling to even think.
Yeah, and then you never know where it is. So that was one of the challenges that we built SmartVid.io to help solve. With this platform we built, our customers say, hey, what you've built, it's kind of like Google Photos or iPhoto meets YouTube. So it's a place for both pictures and videos. And what it does is, see these three little areas here. First, with photo and video integration, as we'll talk about and give some real live examples in just a minute here with Oliver. What we do is we let field teams use our mobile app, or we integrate with existing systems like BIM 360 Field, which we'll also be talking about in this webinar. We pull in all of that data. So it's not scattered anymore. It's in one place. And then what we do in the second bucket here is we leverage machine learning, which is, in our case, it's speech recognition and image recognition. So listening and watching what's in all of that imagery. And then we go to this last piece of the overall platform, which is we let you do stuff with it. So workflows to send a picture, for example, that may have a safety issue that was found by our engine, what we call our smart tagging engine. We then let you send it to the project and get it to the attention of the appropriate project manager and associated trade. Last couple slides here about the product to set the stage for the case studies. So the core things, two areas about the product here. The first is that we are integrating with a whole bunch of different systems. So as I mentioned when I was describing the platform on the last slide, you don't have to use our mobile app. You actually can integrate with BIM 360 Field, for example, or with some of these other systems in less than 90 seconds, and we will start pulling in your data. It sounds crazy to say, but it's actually true that the integration is that quick to set up. And we're now in 2018, and there are things like APIs, which are ways for computer systems to talk to each other, that actually make it really simple and straightforward if you build the right adapters to be able to set these integrations up. So we've built those adapters. You can connect up these systems really quickly. And then there are a whole bunch of different folks at both the project and the whole company level that then can make use of the data. Today, we're going to talk about progress tracking and safety, but there's also users of photos and videos, obviously in the marketing group. And we've got, even within Skanska, we've got some interesting stuff going on within marketing. And then IT and training and the risk management teams. So we're aggregating, that's the first part, and then we're making it available to all the different users within the company. Okay, the last slide here, the machine learning, there's a bunch of hype about it. You can't, at least I'm very sensitive to it because it's what we do, but it feels like you can't pick up the newspaper or read a blog or Twitter any day and you see machine learning everywhere. What we're doing is really pretty straightforward in terms of what the impact is. The technology is really complicated, but the impact is very straightforward. Basically, we look at pictures, we find stuff in the picture using image recognition, and we listen to videos that you record in the field, and we hear what you say. So we see and we hear. And that can be really useful, as we'll get back now with Oliver and talk about the projects that we've worked together on. It can be really useful for safety analysis, progress tracking, and more. So Oliver, let's talk a little bit about the partnership with Skanska.
Yeah, so as you guys may have remembered from earlier, the drone program at Skanska kind of kicked off our initial foray into different tech platforms. And around 2015, towards the end of 2015, early 2016, working with drones and creating our own drone program, we saw the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, to be site progress photos and project tracking. Through that drone program, we began to work with Josh and his team at SmartVid to kind of see where and how the two different types of tech platforms could come together. what we wanted to do is not only just to identify key uses, but also see what other parts of the business or the market sector that we can begin to branch these two technologies together. Again, mentioning that safety was one of our key aspects on our job sites, we started to look at ways that we could take our drones and essentially take the images or the videos and tie that into the machine learning platform to begin smart tagging some components on our job sites. Very bare bones, just kind of R&D type collaboration, but that kind of spawned into something more diverse where we're utilizing the technology in a much stronger fashion or a much better way to identify those components. Over the last year or so, we saw that benefit and we took it up a notch and applied for an internal innovation grant within the Skanska program, which is pretty unique in itself because not too many competitors, if any, really offer this type of innovation platform internal to its employees to advance job sites, different parts of the business, et cetera. It really is open to anybody and anyone in the company where they may have a great idea or a process or even just want to test out a hardware device or a platform, and we're able to utilize this by testing it on our job sites. Great combination of people who are driven and people who want to make a change in the industry, and then also utilizing that with our current projects. That innovation grant process led us to more of a structured approach, and we wanted to look at safety, as Josh had mentioned, through progress tracking as well as monitoring. So that innovation grant started off with roughly about 8 to 10 projects. We culled it down after the first few months, identifying 2 key areas we wanted to focus in on with 2 particular projects, and those will be coming up here shortly, and I'll get you the details. So long story short, the innovation grant helped to kind of spawn the initial use of machine learning, and it has escalated and evolved into something more robust. And with the 2 projects coming up, I'm going to introduce you those 2 right now. We have 2112 Pennsylvania Avenue out of Washington, D.C., and we have the Newmetrix Museum out of the University of Washington over on the West Coast. 2 interesting aspects of the projects. We looked at video enhancement through our safety program, and then also project tracking or milestone tracking within the University of Washington.
So that's great. I mean, I think the summary of how we started working together is we started in the sky with drones, and then we went to the ground with field superintendents doing and safety personnel doing walks for safety and progress. So let's get into those. Let's talk about exactly what was done as we went from these 2, and now I think we're at least 10 projects, right? It's over 10, something like that, across the company. So let's go into the first part here. So we're going to talk about safety first, and then progress tracking, and these are real examples from the projects. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences, Oliver, and these project teams, the experiences of these project teams. So talking about safety first. So the first part of the safety offering was using video inspections for safety. So instead of walking a job as a safety, either a safety manager, a site safety inspector, or even a superintendent or a PM or PE who has a safety walk as a responsibility. Instead of using checklists or just doing it kind of one-off, what you do is you can use our mobile app, and you can narrate videos and document best practices and hazards as you walk. And the video clips then, either pieces of them, you can see in the little screenshot here, there's a tag that's highlighted. That specific tag can then be shared with the folks on the project to help resolve issues, but then also to be able to be used for training on that project and beyond. That was something that the teams found to be very useful, right?
I was going to say it was something that the teams found useful and very beneficial because, again, going away from standard process, this allowed teams to, one, communicate and collaborate a lot more clearly than ever before. Rather than just taking a photo, marking it up, and sending it up, here we're able to record in create a video, which we can audio annotate and send out to team personnel. It was a great way for the team to kind of interact with safety.
So yeah, so in this case, maybe there's a description of some housekeeping issue, and this one here's a video example of a loose hole cover. And then, what wound up being really interesting, hearing back from the safety team, is they could create these job site specific clips that actually were about that specific job and the specific phase of work. So it wasn't a generic training video that people had to watch or a generic toolbox talk. It was actual content from that actual job that was relevant to the specific phase, and that wound up being really impactful.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, what Josh just said really, it put everything into context, not to dumb it down, but it helps people identify those issues on site, their location, etc.
So one of the things that's key for machine learning is that you got to know what the heck it's supposed to be looking for, right? So as I mentioned before, it's hearing you and watching. So what we've done in our product is we have a concept of tags. So these tags, we call them smart tags, because we're SmartVid.io, and as I like to say, we don't have a very big marketing department, so we just put smart in front of everything. But so it's smart tags. These tags are, you as a customer, you can control them. You can actually even set them up at the entire company level so that every project you start has the same set of tags. So here's some examples of some of the training safety library tags that you guys put together for, this is sort of the overview, and then also some specifics on fall protection.
Yeah, and what was interesting is, again, this wasn't directed by our IT group or our BIM group. This was created by our guys out in the field, our team out in the field. So in this particular example of 2112 Pennsylvania Avenue, Jason Timmerman, our safety director, worked with our team and the SmartVid team to come up with the definitions, if you will, and create our tag list. What we found was interesting is that through other projects, different nomenclature existed, whether it would be level 1, floor 1, so on. That was something that maybe, Josh, you can kind of explain a little bit how we worked around that. But going back to the initial setup, it was something that our teams came up with, not an IT person or a BIM person. This was all done by our own field personnel.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the first things we learned as we were letting field personnel use speech, basically, is trying to understand what people say. As we're trying to understand what people say, it's really obvious. Some people say first floor, other people say floor 1. And so you actually, in the system, you can create alternates so that it listens for any of those. And if you say them, it all resolves back to whatever the actual location is, as defined in your room and floor schedule, which you can actually import from Excel if you want. You just import that thing to start. So that's a little bit about the first set of uses around safety, which was field walks, videos. The next part of safety was actually, it's completely different in that it required no interaction from field safety teams or anyone in the field at the project level at all. This is the computer vision analytics piece for safety. So instead of using voice, what we're doing here is we're using computer vision to analyze all of the images that are coming from BIM 360 field, as well as potentially other systems as are shown here. So a quick shout out to Autodesk. They'll be talking later. BIM 360 field is used widely at Skanska. And this is one of the areas that, in terms of folks listening, wondering what's a good way to start, this is a great way to get started to understand how machine learning can impact your company. So it's a great way to get started because it's really easy to get the integrations going. And then you can do specific things like we're launching a whole new initiative around glove compliance, where we're able to actually see if field personnel are missing gloves. Many companies are moving towards 100% glove compliance policy. So I'll talk more about that later. But Oliver, this was one of the ML areas that was interesting to you guys, right?
Exactly. So as you mentioned before, with regards to different types of programs within our own safety program, for example, down in the Southeast in Florida, we have a Ladder's Last campaign. So this is an excellent tool for us to analyze or have SmartVid analyze our data set to identify areas where we do have ladders, and so we can quickly address those issues on site. The other thing, dealing with PPE or personal protection, again, we have a combined system of, hard hat, gloves, eyeglasswear, and so on. And so we want to be able to identify those infractions, if you will, and begin to start remedying those and start to track those metrics. This is a perfect example where we're able to kind of adopt machine learning very early on with little pushback.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you don't even have to tell field guys to do anything different. They're not doing anything different. They're just using BIM 360 Field. They're taking photos for progress tracking, for milestone documentation. You may have, through BIM 360 Field, you may have photos coming from site cameras. We pull all of those in and we analyze them. We have specific sets of things, as Oliver and I have already talked about a little bit, around PPE, where we're leveraging the NVIDIA-powered, NVIDIA is a kind of computer chip that is really well designed for machine learning. And you'll hear more about that later in the webinar. But what we're doing is we're doing things like detecting, as you can see in this example on the right from 121 Seaport, that we're helping with things like gloves, missing glove detection. Oliver also gave a great example. Skanska's ladders last policy is really important to Jason Timmerman, who we worked with closely on the safety side at Skanska. And so we can do things like not just detect missing PPE, we can detect positive things like, hey, there's a ladder here, and then you can give a quick look and make sure it's being used properly or it's the right kind of ladder. Because there's specific kinds of ladders that should only be used in certain circumstances.
Yeah, a great point. And the other thing, too, I wanted to add is the aspect of having a second set or a third set of eyes. We had mentioned a little bit about that earlier on with some of the other areas of focus, but the great thing about the communication piece is that sometimes when we're walking through our job sites and doing our site safety evaluations and walkthroughs, it's just natural for us to miss some things here and there. And what this does is it allows, and this is an industry-wide challenge, but what this allows us to do is have that second set of eyes to be able to analyze and help kind of enhance our safety program in that sense as well.
Yep. Yeah, there's a ton of information out there. There's a ton of data, like we've said early on. What you can do with machine learning is you can have this, like you've said, extra set of eyes that's automatic, and it's helping to review the content. And then you control what to do with it. This information is yours. You can decide how you want to manage it internally to make sure that you're driving the right kind of behavior, which is both on the positive and negative side. We're able to observe people who look like they're fully compliant with PPE as well. So we're not just trying to get people if they're non-compliant. We're trying to think of it as a balanced view, almost like a batting average of compliance along those areas.
Well, I was going to add too, Josh, the effects of machine learning with safety. I want to make it clear too that we are not reliant on just machine learning to enhance our safety. This is a tool just like with anything else in our tool belt. This only enhances our ability to detect and react. It's, again, a tool that we want to make sure that is useful to our teams, and it's shown that it has been useful and beneficial, and that's something we want to continue. So, again, just wanted to make it perfectly clear that, we are not relying strictly on machine learning or taking the human factor out of it. There's still interaction, as you mentioned. There's a lot of data still to be reviewed, and that's where the human piece comes into play.
Yeah, it's a really important point, Oliver. And as a product company, there's a lot of hype out there around machine learning, and it's coming for everybody's jobs. That's not our goal. We don't think that's the best use of machine learning in the construction industry. There's so many expert decisions that need to be made, but there's so much data. Machine learning can be an assistant. It can help look through all the data and elevate stuff that should get a human to have a person look at them. And
exactly.
We think it'd be really helpful in that regard and help drive behavior and reduce risk by doing that. All right, so that was safety. So we talked about safety, think of safety walks with video. That was one piece. And then we have this computer vision analytics basically to do compliance checking, and help understand risk, drive risk reduction. The second big part, so there was safety, now it's progress tracking. So it's actually very similar to doing a video walk for safety. You can have a different set of tags, and instead of safety personnel or field personnel who have to do a safety walk, you can use our mobile app to do voice annotated progress walks, which and the same number applies to the safety walks. It saves, we've shown in case studies, it saves 60% of the time required. Now, if you think about that, where does the 60% come from? Well, the process of doing progress tracking is it's a really rough one around the industry. It requires taking a lot of pictures, coming back, organizing them, trying to figure out where they were taken. Now, instead of going through that whole process, you can just take a video and talk, and then we automatically organize all the content for you. So,
precisely.
Oliver, in your years in the industry, you've seen progress and key milestone documentation is it's always a challenge, isn't it?
I was going to say it's always been a challenge in the construction industry, and it's one of the things that we kind of overlook on our job sites. It's a task that needs to be done. It's a job that needs to be done. But again, standardization is few and far between in the industry with this. The way that SmartVid has actually enhanced this is, like you said, not only with the time savings, but it's almost, I hate to use the term, but maybe it is a good term, but almost revolutionary, because it's such an easy tool to utilize in the terms of progress milestone documentation that it eliminates a lot of the redundancy or the extra work that's needed in traditional methods of creating naming conventions, subfolders, file locations, even access rights. It's a great tool within the SmartVid platform to manage, because it streamlines everything. And that's one of the benefits that we also saw on the job site. It's a reduction of time, but it's also an efficiency tool as well.
That's great. Well, let's get into some of the specifics there of how it was used on those jobs. So just like we had tags for safety and safety walks, we also have tags for the various ways you want to slice and dice your progress and milestone documentation. So these were locations, as well as specific types of materials, and then also statuses, right? Those were some of the key terms.
That's correct. Yep. And again, that was also not selected, but that was also created by our project team out in the field.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, and again, you can import it from Excel, and you can basically define this and make it super easy to just use your voice to organize your data. So here's a couple examples of that. So the first example of progress tracking video, this was in this particular example, it's a little hard to see, but it's drywall was being installed, and that specific material was mentioned, and the status was installed, and then the location was given as northeast corner level 1, and that was all done automatically through the machine learning, listening to what was said.
Correct. And again, the key thing here being communication. So it was what we found out on our job sites and through this particular project is that it was more natural for our team to document. It was just a matter of going to the locations and speaking just naturally as they would to identify the progress update or status, and then taking that into SmartVid and allowing the tagging features to tag those.
That's great. So another example here is, so these are familiar to anybody who's had to do milestone documentation, but here they're documenting the exterior skin as it's coming on, and so mentioning south elevation, and then it's interesting as an example because it's not a video in this case. It's a feature that we rolled out due to customer demand. Some field superintendents don't want to take videos, so despite us saying, hey, just take a short video, they said we don't want to take any videos at all, we just want to take pictures, but we still want to use our voice to help organize it. So we have a feature called a photo with voice. Again, our marketing team is maybe understaffed, so it's a photo with voice, no fancy term. And what it does is you analyze what you say, and then it organizes it using the same location hierarchy, phase hierarchy, materials that you have from before. So this is what the UW owner and architect also got to see this content, right?
That's right, and they loved it. It was, again, an easy way for us to document and share that information with project personnel or the client in this case.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool workflow because not all tags have to be created through machine learning. You can create some manually, right? So on this project, for example, they created a tag approved for review by owner, and they could then review the content they internally wanted to share with the owner, and they only gave the owner visibility into the stuff that had that approved for view by owner tag. So you basically can have this big bucket of photos and videos analyzed that only the project team can see, and then you can tag stuff just using manual tags and create special views for different, think of it all as all the stakeholders on the job.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get to the bottom line here, the results and lessons learned.
Yeah, so again, because of the innovation grant and reviewing some of the input that was coming back from our project teams, we were able to key in on these 4, and these aren't just the only 4, but we wanted to tee up the 4 key result areas. So time savings is definitely key. We mentioned some of the traditional processes or ways of doing things like progress tracking on our job sites or safety monitoring. And again, what we saw with the SmartBid machine learning platform is that we were able to carry out our daily operations like we would in any traditional sense, but we were able to save time in the way we documented and tracked and managed that input. Improve safety, another great tool that again was more or less a low-hanging fruit for us because it is something that we take to heart. We wanted to see the value there, and we did on a couple of our jobs that we implemented this out on. It helped us create greater awareness, communication, collaboration, and again, an easier way to archive and train our project teams and safety directors on the site. It's easy to use. If I can do it, and you hear the term, if I can do it, then anyone can. And that's really true here. I think Josh and the SmartBid team have created an excellent platform and user interface to where anyone in construction can use this. And I say that jokingly, but in reality, it really is an intuitive interface. It's really easy to use. It's just a matter of if you can point and click and shoot your photo or video, you're golden. And then last but not least, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just to jump in. That's one of the lessons we've learned over the years working in the industry. I mean, it's got to be easy to use because people, you don't have time on the job to be learning new software. So it's got to be super simple to use, and it's got to also deliver other value. For example, if you use our mobile app, any photo or video you take, it goes off of your phone. So it actually frees up space on your phone from all your job site photos. So that's it's like a side benefit to field guys who use our application.
Exactly. And then last but not least, the overall communication had improved. And in this particular instance, with safety walks, again, for future adoption, it was easy to relate and identify key issues on job sites and begin to create an action plan rather than be reactionary. So it was a good overall experience, and we're continuing to push the envelope with machine learning and Josh and his team with SmartBid, and I can't wait for what the future holds.
Well, great to work with you on this, Oliver. Thanks for being the champion of the innovation grant, and Oliver didn't mention it, but the results and lessons learned and a lot of the content of this presentation came from that process, because his butt was on the line to say, hey, we're spending this money, what did we learn? And so they took a pretty scientific approach to figuring out what were people using and why, and what was the benefit. So your hard work there is appreciated. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, guys, and I appreciate all the hard work you guys have done and the collaborative efforts, and look forward to the next 12 months.
Sounds great. All right, now we're going to bring on some of our partners. We're going to bring on first some folks from Autodesk to talk about BIM 360 Field and how the data can flow from their platform and be used effectively. It's now my pleasure to introduce David Desmini. He runs enterprise products, the BIM 360 enterprise products line, for Autodesk. He's based out in San Francisco, has been with Autodesk for over 3 years. After having a career in software as a service companies like Salesforce and others, where he was focused on operations and customer success. A fun fact for David, because I had trouble getting a really fun fact from him, but what we can say is that he manages commercial strategy for construction for Autodesk. David, over to you.
Thanks, Josh, and thank you, Oliver and Skanska, for being longtime Autodesk customers. My name is Dave Desimini. I'm part of the Autodesk construction team, and I look after commercial strategy. I've got just 3 slides that I'm going to walk through today, and I'm excited to share some of our thoughts about construction with you, and really excited about this partnership, both with SmartVid and NVIDIA, and really excited about the work that we're all doing with Skanska. So as we jump into the slides, I'm just going to take a quick step back and talk about the industry as a whole for a moment. We all know that today's construction industry is highly complex, just like this job site pictured on the slide that's in Hong Kong. It's highly fragmented, lots of players, it's risky, congested, and often chaotic, operates at low margins. Autodesk is enabling the path from uncertainty to predictability through support of a guided technology strategy, supporting the digitization of project data and workflows, integrating and automating those workflows to allow data to flow seamlessly between project phases, helping to connect the design and build processes, utilizing data to measure progress, establish benchmarks, extract insights through machine learning, and drive continuous improvement across with all the great risk factors such as time, budget, quality, safety, all the things that are near and dear to our hearts. The end result is a move from projects that are at risk through uncertainty to a higher level of predictability that ensures better outcomes. The BIM 360 platform is built to support the integration and automation of workflows. It's a unified solution that supports centralized collection and use of data, from documents to issues, RFIs, photos, and other details collected on the job site. BIM 360 is built on top of Autodesk Forge. It's our development platform. It's a set of APIs that allows for frictionless data flow, but also the ability to pass information to and from third-party applications, which is what makes our partnership with SmartVid possible. It's tools to help build a single source of truth. The Forge platform is a foundation for building an AEC software ecosystem that focuses on access to data and not just applications. We just heard a great example from Josh and Oliver about using photos that were captured as part of quality checklists, progress and milestone documentation, even safety checklists. They're all automatically transferred into SmartVid IO through the Forge platform for analysis. With all that project information captured, collected, and stored in a central location, the value of how data can be used becomes evident. BIM 360 leverages the entire project data set with all the connected information to provide project and company-wide insight into data and trends that lead to better predictability for your projects. With that, I'll hand it back over to you, Josh. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Renee Yao, Senior Product Marketing Manager at NVIDIA, where she's been for close to 2 years now. She works in the AI systems product team with a focus on deep learning and analytics. She, as a fun fact, has 2 things. One, she's a competitive ballroom dancer, and she's also one of the top 50 product marketers to watch. So it's my pleasure to welcome Renee into the webinar.
Thanks, Josh. As you previously heard in the webinar, Josh mentioned that they actually uses NVIDIA technology, GPUs, to make the construction space more safe and effective. So I'll use the next 5 minutes to quickly go over why NVIDIA technology is the fundamental driver. Let's kind of dive into a little bit of what exactly is AI, machine learning, and deep learning. AI is kind of like teaching a computer to act like a human, has knowledge about the world, can learn, reason, plan, communicate, and manipulate objects. And machine learning, on the other hand, is a subset of AI and is a data-driven approach, as computer can learn from the data without being explicitly programmed. Through like 2000s, that's when we started generating a bunch of data, and we can teach a computer how to identify, for example, spam versus important emails. And that's when really data explosion just took off. And deep learning is another subfield of machine learning, where a neural network, which is biologically inspired from our brain, can automatically learn these hierarchical representations. In terms of how deep learning works, there are two major operations. One is the training and the other one is inference. So training feeds kind of like examples of objects to be detected, like the animals, the cats here you see on the screen, and you can make predictions as to what they are. The training process reinforces the correct predictions and then correct those wrong ones. And as soon as it's trained, then a production neural network can achieve up to 90 to 98% correct results. And then you go to the inference side, which is the deployment of a trained network to evaluate new objects and then make predictions with similar predictive accuracy. And Josh, in fact, you guys are doing this, right? Can you share with the audience here about some of the data you guys are using?
Yeah, Renee, it's been very interesting. We've partnered with our customers as well as with industry data sources like Engineering News Record or ENR. We have 10 years worth of data for our training set of construction projects. So both photo data, and then we have more recent video data from our own users, which includes not just photos, but also audio. So we're training on real construction site imagery and building our own deep learning models for the needs of the construction industry itself. As I like to say, there's cats like you have in your slide on the consumer side, but we don't care so much about cats on the industrial side. In construction, we care about cracks. So that was our motto for a little while: cracks, not cats. So great to see cats on your slide.
That's awesome. Everything that Josh and team is doing here actually really reveals why our GPU computing has enabled this whole thing and why it has been taken off in this space. This is a graph right now you're seeing that it shows the end of Moore's law and the increased adoption of GPUs. The Moore's law, for those of you who are not really familiar, is basically doubling of the processor powers, which will occur every 2 years. However, that has really come to an end because of several reasons. One is, so as the transistors are packed ever so tightly from very beginning, it was 90 nanometer to 45 to 22 to 14, that geospatial scaling really hit a wall. And those that were using light to transfer a geometric pattern, and because of the high compute demand, we created our supercomputer in a box DGX system. This tall one you saw in the middle is actually our DGX station. It has 4 of our fastest GPUs, Volta, and one of these have 4 GPUs, but it's equivalent to 400 CPUs packed in a box. Water-cooled, whisper quiet, you can put right under your cubicle. The next one that's lying across the long one is the DGX1 with 8 of our fastest Volta in it, and equivalent to 800 CPUs throughput. If you just visualize that, 800 CPUs, that's like a whole row of servers in a data center. But we are also making sure that you can do your deep learning anywhere and everywhere you want. So that's why we have the NVIDIA GPU Cloud. And that really provides the developer a way to get started with deep learning fast at no additional cost if they have our hardware, and access to comprehensive, fully optimized deep learning software stack. What that means here is, for example, SmartVid, you guys uses TensorFlow. A customer like SmartVid is using our NVIDIA GPU Cloud, and you really don't have to worry about the weekly or the monthly updates that TensorFlow rolls out. All your data scientists have to worry about is the insights from the data. And we will make sure that you have the most optimal experience. And you can train it anywhere from a single GPU, Titan X or Jetson at the edge, to a workstation at your cubicle, to DGX1 in your data center, or on any cloud provider. Josh, in fact, you guys are using some of the cloud providers, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're using Amazon as well as through the NVIDIA Inception program. We've also built our own rig to train locally. So we use a combination of both cloud as well as good old-fashioned iron to get the best results.
That's awesome. And Josh's team, they use this, for those of you who know, is AWS P2 and P3. So P2 is the Pascal GPUs and P3 is the Volta GPUs. There's a Deep Learning Institute to just learn a couple hands-on labs, and Inception partners where we actually have a lot of the AI startups where we help nurture along the way. Last but not least is our GTC conferences, where we host these conferences for our GPU developers. And now, Josh, turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Renee, for participating in the webinar and for your support as a great partner. It really is an important partnership between software providers and hardware providers to deliver this learning, the machine learning and deep learning revolution. Thanks again. So if you're wondering what to do next after hearing all this great content in this webinar, there's a few things. First of all, if you had any questions, if we weren't able to get back to you during the webinar, during chat, we'll follow up with you directly afterwards. If you are interested in seeing how machine learning can help your company, it's very easy to get started. As we mentioned during the webinar, you can integrate your BIM 360 field project or BIM 360 docs project and get the pictures flowing in less than 90 seconds. Start a trial at app.smartvid.io. You can go to smartvid.io also if you want to get the case study with everything you read about or heard about rather in this webinar. You can read about it in the case study. It's not just our company name, smartvid.io, it's also our website. So really easy to get to. And if you have questions and want to email us, just email us at info@smartvid.io. So in closing, thank you for attending the webinar. Thank you if you made it this long. We're extremely excited about the potential for machine learning in the huge AEC industry, the $10 trillion global AEC industry, to help change the way safety, progress tracking, and more are executed, and to add value to how work is done in the field and how work is managed at the enterprise level. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.